Hi, I'm Arthur, and this is part 3 in a 5-part series I am doing covering what is probably the most expansive Warhammer 40k lore iceberg meme that I could find. Do you need to have seen the prior parts to understand this one? No, but starting at part 1 would definitely help, because it's more or less a good jumping off point to understand the whole series. If you don't know what an iceberg meme is, then part 1 is still the best part to be at, because I'm not gonna explain it in depth in every video, but TLDR, the deeper we go, the lower the layer from 1 to 10, the more obscure and weird the content becomes. So, in this video, we are covering layers 5 and 6. This is where things sort of pop off a little bit, I will admit, because these are the first layers in which I have encountered something that I didn't know anything about at all. Trust me, I will definitely let you know what I'm talking about when I get there. Gotta be transparent and all that, but before I go into the iceberg itself, I just want to say, hey, guys, I have merch now. Yeah, as of this video going live, I officially have Mr. Bones 40k merchandise that is official as all hell. You can pick your stuff up by clicking the link in the pinned comment or the link in the description of this video to get yourself one of these lovely shirts that some of my best friends worked on over the last couple months to get ready. All of its original art that I commissioned myself. You could have them as graphic tees, or you could also have them as hoodies. Alongside that, you have this beautiful canvas art print that you can buy that comes in several different sizes. But alongside that, you can have these button packs of sad soldiers, which if you've been in the Discord server for a while, you'll see where the inspiration for these came from. So pick up a shirt, a print, or a set of buttons and support your favorite YouTuber. Or me, I guess. That'd be cool too, I think. Layer 5, Deep and Dark. Okay, so Layer 5 is essentially the layer where we are past your standard 9-to-5 lore master. Like, this is the tier where things get a little freaky-deaky, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know all of these, but I do know most of them, but that's kind of funky to know. I've been doing this for this long, well over a year now, and I still have quite a decent amount of things that I don't know. So it's been a rumor for a little bit of a while that the Eldar acted in a similar way to the old ones, where they uplifted individual races that were already existing, or at least partially so in regards to the Tau. There is some credence to it, like the ethereal casts suddenly popping up to support them, their souls never growing larger, them never developing true psychers, making them kind of immune to chaos corruption. Kinda. Okay, we don't talk about that one time. But regardless, them being more or less immune to chaos corruption makes it so they are the perfect soldiers against, say, Slaanesh? Or any chaos god, to be honest. It is a bit of a conspiracy, but I think it's kind of fun. Tuska Demon Killer is a legend in the 40k mythos. He is simply an orc who realized that if you want to have a good time, you just turn off your Gellerfield, or, well, whatever orcs use as a Gellerfield, midway through a warp travel for some in-flight entertainment. He did this off and on for quite some time, got the Eye of Khorne on him, because remember, Khorne cares not from where the blood flows, only that it does. So he ended up providing more and more challenges, even putting Tuska on a demon world, just to get the good blood for the blood god and good skulls for the skull throne. The new men of Fabius Bile are a bit weird. Basically, Fabius Bile fancies himself a bit of a scientist, so what does that? Basically, he's trying to create better and better forms of life no matter the cost. Which, there is a massive cost, I will say, in life, in dignity, and like abducted factory workers. And he is essentially trying to grow a whole new race of human beings, called the New Men, which he grew to be humans, but bigger, stronger, and smarter, and so on. He actually implants them in societies of people to have them eventually intermingle with humanity and, like, you know, make more. This one is kind of interesting, and one of my older friends broke this down to me a few years ago, and it's kind of summed up like this. In current day Warhammer 40k, war bosses are kind of the shit. You have to listen to them or you die. But during the Great Crusade, and earlier than that, you had more mechs and big mechs running orc wars, which led to a better level of technology, and it made them significantly more of a threat, because orc technology is incredibly advanced and unstable, but the less you have of it, the less of a threat they kind of represent. So it fell out of favor, and due to that, you kind of lost the major threat that the orcs represented. Oh, and also Ulanor was a thing. I forgot to mention that. That's kind of a big deal. Without getting demonetized by YouTube, this is a meme that Major Kill made. If you spend money on his Patreon, you get access to a boatload of it. So, yeah. Rogal Dorn's death has been, to some degree, hotly debated, as from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was stabbed by Alfarius' spear of super death immortal torment, whatevers, and ended up living for a little while, and eventually ended up disappearing with only his hand remaining where he was. It's often speculated that not only is he not dead, but he is one of the next Primarchs to be coming back on the Loyalist side, which, if that is true, then, like, rest in peace, Chaos. Pack it in, bozos. You guys don't really stand a chance with 3 Primarchs coming back. So no one really knows where the Tyranids came from. In the original editions of Warhammer 40k, there were some mentions that they were just a standard race that was in the setting. They even had Zotes as a means to reach trade agreements and communicate between other races, so that was cool. But the reason they came to this section of the universe is allegedly the activation of a Necron device on the planet of Sotha, referred to as the Sotha device, which was a massive warp transdimensional whatever device that ended up luring them to the galaxy, which I think is the most up-to-date interpretation. Okay, this is one of the ones that I didn't know anything about in the slightest, which is weird, but not unexpected. The citation that I got was from the book Prospero Burns, which I have yet to get to in the Horus Heresy, but the Alamicude is a separatist faction of sort of humans that actually survived the Dark Age of technology and the Age of Strife, which makes a lot of sense when you look at what they are. They are a hyper-advanced race of post-humans that from birth ritualistically replace body parts with cybernetics until they are fully grown and are mostly just robots. I think it's stated that they're just a brainstem and a skull with maybe eyeballs that remain with a holographic projection of a face so that they have a bit of individuality. They apparently believed that they were the true inheritors of humanity, thus were going to annihilate the rest of the Imperium. Unfortunately, among the first new things that they learned about when they first interacted with the Imperium of Mankind with this so-called declaration was the existence of the Space Wolves, which ended about as well as you'd expect. This is one I think that in general is a reference to old 4chan degenerates that would write up some of the worst fanfictions imaginable. I'm not 100%, as I'm not much one to consume fanfiction in general, and I never really patrolled 4chan that much when I was younger, or even now, really. Sometimes I'd pop in on TG, but I just don't understand this one completely. So I doubt it's anything that I've ever seen, but I'm 100% certain it's some of the most debased stuff I've ever seen in my life. The Thyrus are weird. I didn't know about them before writing this, but it was fun learning about them. Essentially, they are weird Nautilus-style creatures that have this weird concept to war as a whole, where they see war as a performance and entertainment rather than, well, war. So they go out of their way to be as flashy as humanly possible at the detriment of all other life involved. They will full on lose a war if it meant they got to do something cool, which honestly, good for them. I like how this one is just here as a meme, which the meme is, man, Rogue Trader was really weird. Which, yes, it was, but all things that ascend from that one medical condition known as being born in the 80s have very little resemblance to their older self. Rogue Trader was the original title of the game, and it was more of a skirmish combat style game, which with a lot more emphasis on the goofy rather than anything else, which around 3rd edition of Warhammer 40k that kind of started to erase. So yeah, I also ordered one of those collector books of Rogue Trader for the anniversary of its inception about 5 or 6 months ago, and it hasn't shown up yet. I mean, that's not lore, I just think that's bullshit. Among the different Loyalist Primarchs, a lot of their current plot lines are essentially, and then he just left. And we are kinda just waiting to see who comes back, but Jackai Con left in a way that suggests some fun return later. Basically, he left into the Maelstrom, which if you don't know what that is, the Maelstrom is essentially a tiny version of the Eye of Terror that is more containable, and he went through it chasing after Dark Eldar into the Webway, which I think is really, really funny. So, he's probably in Camraderie murdering as many Drukhari as humanly possible. Probably the worst headache of your life, the Insslavers are a weird bug virus parasite thing that exists. They are a non-chaos, I hope, warp entity that spreads to the minds of uncareful psychers. They burrow into the psychic brain meats of a psyker and slowly develop more and more like a true infection. Once it has reached a sort of critical mass event, the psyker in question will explode into a bug jellyfish monster that will proceed to more easily infect more of the populace of the planet. They are considered one of the more dangerous threats in the setting, but nonetheless are very rarely seen anymore, thank God. This is a reference to If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech program, and it's basically referencing that the Custodes on the show itself strip out of their armor and look like Greek gods, all oily and stuff. They use the bodies of the Pillarmen from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 2 in the series in order to show off how built these specimens truly are, and even use the Pillarman's theme whenever they show up. Also, it's really weird that this, of all things, is the time I bring up TTS on the channel for the first time. Okay? Sometimes you don't control the gifts you're given. A machine that was created by the Dark Mechanicum on the outset of the Horus Heresy. It was basically a self-piloted super mech that was actually in possession of a functioning AI. It was a device released on the Loyalist side of things, and yeah, there isn't much known other than it really murdered a bunch of knights and whatnot. I do think it is interesting to think that the Dark Mechanicum doesn't employ AI often in their works. It's like they know, even from them, it's probably not a good idea. One of the more dark things that happened in the 40k universe was the birth of Slaanesh. Look at the prior videos for that lore. But upon Slaanesh's birth, they consumed the souls of almost every Eldar god, making them one of the more powerful Chaos gods for a small period of time. I say almost because Cain got away and did his thing, and Isha, god of life, renewal, and not being sick, got captured by Nurgle, whom currently has her chained to his cauldron, which he tests new diseases on regularly because she's always going to heal from it. Yeah, it's about as dark as you'd think, and as you'd assume, like most Eldar lore, no, they will never bring it up again. Layer 6. Pitch Black. I don't even know how to describe this layer. The only way I can is that the person who would know all of this is basically the sweaty guy at every Warhammer 40k tournament you've ever gone to. You know, unmanaged hair, kinda curly, shitty facial hair, overweight, smells vaguely of cheese. The type to sometimes go, "Did you know that Saint Celestine is actually an Imperial demon?" You know the type. I'm so happy this is here. This is one of those remnants of the original editions of 40k that are just silly. Original Warhammer 40k was a mishmash of all the favorite references that the creators loved. So a lot of action films, a lot of sci-fi novels, and a lot of references to other materials that they were enjoying at the time. I mean, it's just a lot of Dune and Robert A. Heinlein stuff, now that I think about it. This whole character's existence is literally summed up by his name, Obi-Wan Sherlock Clouseau. Which, unfortunately, a lot of younger individuals might not get the Clouseau bit, because I don't think Inspector Clouseau has been in the modern zeitgeist for many, many years. You know, it is what it is. He was a psychic inquisitor who dressed like some asshole at a ska concert. You know, checker patterns, trench coat, fedora, jeans. God, this is so funny. It's been kind of well known that the Primarchs, at minimum due to their proximity to the Emperor's genetics, are going to make them at least a little bit warp-touched, but it has been theorized that at minimum, most of the Primarchs are psychically aware, and at most, they are all latent psychers, just in varying degrees of denial. There are a lot of other theories, like one of the more interesting ones is that the Emperor killed a bunch of older warp gods and put their souls into the Primarchs' bodies, which is why they have such a diverse set of natures instead of just being 20 Rebute Gillimans. But honestly, I think that's a load of crap. Cipher, as we have discussed on the prior tiers, is that one kinda edgelord dude who is playing both sides against the middle at this point. I don't know if he's loyal or not, but my theory is that he is, and this is what this tier is about. See, Cipher, as I mentioned in the prior video, is a title given to a member of the Order from Caliban, who is charged with preserving the memories and the traditions of the knights themselves. So it would serve to say that he might be, in fact, a loyalist, especially since he's carrying pieces of the old sword the lion carried. He can also allegedly, at least in my mind, forest walk, where he enters a micro-dimension where the Watchers are. The Watchers inherently hate chaos, so they will kill anyone who isn't aligned with them. So I guess he's loyalist, or at minimum he's a renegade and not a Chaos Marine. This is a fun theory. Basically, the idea is that the Emperor died a long-ass time ago, and the Golden Throne is essentially just leeching off his soul, and the soul of every other person they have to sacrifice to keep it running in order to keep the Astronomicon up. Because if you don't know this, the Astronomicon is a massive beacon used to orient yourself in regards to Terra, which, if it goes out, it's pretty much game over for every person mid-warp travel. But I will say, this theory has kind of been disproven as of the Dark Imperium series, and a few of the other more modern books, where Guilliman has interacted with the Emperor, and although it was a weird interaction, it is still an interaction nonetheless. The Sanguinor is weird. It is very weird. So my interpretation is this. Basically, as we all know, the more emotionally charged and devout a group of individuals are, the more warp-based phenomena occur. The Blood Angels are especially psychically charged, and are known for being especially volatile. So, when emotions run high, and things get desperate, an entity is summoned known as the Sanguinor, which bears a resemblance to Sanguinius, in golden armor with a golden mask. This entity has never truly been discoverable after any battle that it has shown up to, but its whole gimmick is it shows up and saves the Blood Angels at their darkest time. I actually knew pretty closely about this one before even reading it. Genghis Khan, or at least the Terran historical equivalent of Genghis Khan, was the first demon prince of Khorne to come from humanity, and I think it's actually established that he was the first human demon prince in general. Basically, he became Doombreed, which is a dope-ass name, and I've known about this dude for a while now. Cool idea. I wish we did more things like this, you know? I want there to be like a, oh hey, Rasputin became a Tzeentch demon prince, or some shit like that. That'd be cool, right? As someone who has read a lot of college-adjacent material, I really like this one's inclusion, because the whole meme here is that you have no idea what angle Call is going after. We learn only from secondhand anecdotes that he is in fact loyal to the Imperium. He has had friends, is obsessed with cloning his oldest friend, and has numbered them at this point due to how many times they die. I'm like 90% certain they're at like 86 or 87. There are small things that hint to greater oddities and greater ambitions. What do I mean? Well, for one, there is this device known as the Call Inferior. It's basically a computer programmed with enough brains to memorize everything Call would want to say in any given situation. So people like Guilliman can come down there, ask it any questions, and the Call Inferior will be able to answer it. But it is interesting that every time that Guilliman interacts with it, the machine itself states that Call must become the Fabricator General of Mars, basically the leader of the Adeptus Mechanicus, which Guilliman fights and says no. So, okay, that's what he wants. He wants to be the Fabricator General, and he wants to be like the leader of the faction. But actually, no. I think Decimus Felix, one of the Tetrarchs of Ultramar, confronted him on that specific idea, and he said he had no idea what he was talking about because he never told the Call Inferior to say that. I think it's something I'm going to expand upon later, but it's very interesting to say the least. This is one of the ones I had trouble finding anything about. I hate browsing Reddit, I should note, but I did find a few people quoting novels where Cog Whisperer was used as a bit of a slur towards the Mechanicus, but it also seems to be a specific classification of adept that can actually speak to machine spirits pretty easily and get them to listen. I remember in book 8 or 9 of the Horus Heresy, the Emperor landed on Mars himself and spoke to a Night Walker mech with a messed up leg joint and just simply said to fix yourself, and the leg immediately started working again as if it was new. So I assume it's something similar to that, but on like a priest level. Okay, whoever put this list together, dog, you need therapy, because listing this 3-hit combo of the Rongda, the Crave, and the Sloth all together are just okay. So, lightning round. The Rongdan Xenocide was an event that ended with the deaths of billions, the loss of a Primarch, and the Dark Angels losing most of their ranks in order to fight off some species, civilization, or collective simply referred to as the Rongda. We don't know what the Rongda are, but due to inferences made, we assume that they might have something to do with mind control and something to do with the Warp or Psychers, as the Primarchs we have lost in the past are from the 2nd and 11th Legion, are struck from record, so it means that they must have done something bad or disgraceful to be struck from it, or something that would look bad upon the rest of the Imperium. The reason that is significant is because the Crave and the Sloth are ancient xenospecies with an extreme control over the minds of others, and an extreme presence in the Warp, able to have incredibly insane psychic abilities. They can control people in some cases, I believe, with Super Crave, that control people from millions of light years away without any real issue, and they can turn people that they control into Alpha Plus Psychers, so basically just on par with, like, Grey Knights at that point. So it is inferred that the Rongda was a cover-up for some Super Crave working with the Worm Men, which might be related to the Insslavers, in order to take over the universe, and the Crave, or the Rongda, or what have you, ended up controlling a Primarch, which led to it having to be killed by the Lion. The beasts were massive orcs that almost destroyed the Imperium, and are one of the reasons why Vulcan is currently on sabbatical in some far-off planet somewhere. Basically, they were responsible for a massive conflict known as the War of the Beast, where entities known as Primarchs would appear, and yes, that is a dumb name, I don't care, would appear, and they were about double, maybe triple the size of a regular orc, some people confusing them for orc statues when in fact they were just gigantic orcs, which I thought was cool. The war ended up evoking one of the coolest parts of Imperial Fist lore, which is the Last Wall Protocol, where all chapters of Imperial Fists need to come back together to defend Terra. I can't. If you know, you know. Towards the end of the Age of Apostasy, where a lot of non-chaos-based horrible imperial political garbage was happening, there was this era where some dude decided he was basically the true ruler of the ecclesiarchy and decided to conquer as many planets as possible in the name of the Emperor. well, or him. It was him. And he decided to accost the Space Wolves. And like we saw with the Alamicude, it kinda resolved itself quickly after that. Weird that this is the last one on this layer so deep down, but I'm kind of for it. I like the Nephilim. They're described as a very unwieldy sort, where they waddle around on stumpy legs with bodies too big for most normal tasks, clumsy by design and having only 3 fingers on each hand that are described as being chunky on several occasions. They have this weird ability to rip chunks of themselves off, place them on people, and immediately brainwash them to see the Nephilim as angels. The people who have Nephilim bits on them begin to change somehow. It's hard to say because it depends on how long they've had the Nephilim bits on them and what color Nephilim bits they have on them, because the Nephilim come in several different colors. They move faster, fight harder, and move with a supernatural speed, and eventually they start to turn into these hunched over, feral, clamoring beasts on all 4s with massive jaws, but still resemble just mutant humans, with slimy, mushy bits on them. The Nephilim eventually were stopped by the White Scars, and one of the more interesting bits I found out is that early into the goopening process, they can actually remove the jelly bits from the human hosts and maintain 100% human purity. But interestingly enough, they still see the Nephilim as angels, so the brainwashing is more of like a permanent remolding of the brain. So at the end of the conquest, they ended up having to kill every single person that was afflicted by the goopy bits of the Nephilim. It was pretty rough, but they had to prevent the spread of such bad ideas, so yeah. Part 3 done, boys. This is starting to get exhausting. I'm not used to making videos this long on such a consistent basis, and it is tough, but I'm gonna ride it out. We have 2 more parts after this, and I'm free like a bird among the fog-choked skies of Terra. Before I go, remember, once again, to pick your ass up a nice shirt and some buttons from my new merch store. And alongside that, let me know how you feel about the things we discussed here. I am learning a lot, and I'm getting a lot of interesting ideas. Even got spoiled to a book I am currently reading from the last layer that we were just on. I'm not going to say what, but it is interesting. Let me know in the comments what you think is the most interesting about these layers so far. And alongside that, remember to like and subscribe, as it helps the channel immensely. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting me, and if you want to support me as well as gain access to additional content, then become a channel member today. Thanks again for watching, and part 4 is going to kill me.